I'd like to now have a look at attachment. An attachment is a translation of Sanskrit word raga. And I think here with attachment there's often a lot of confusion. So here, of course, we're talking about cultivating loving kindness for ourselves and others. Attachment is one of the three main mental afflictions called the three poisons. So attachment is something we need to eliminate 100%. But then often when that's explained, people have some doubts. And one doubt is that if I get rid of attachment, my life is going to become very bland and boring. I'm not going to be enjoying things anymore. Actually, it's the exact opposite, as we've already seen, is that if we have craving and attachment for the pleasurable things in life, this interferes with our enjoyment of pleasurable experiences, because with that craving and attachment comes worry and anxiety about not getting it, not getting enough of it, losing it, frustration when we don't get it, overindulging when we do get it, disappointment, dissatisfaction when it doesn't live up to our expectations. And that craving and attachment really agitates our mind, and really it just interferes with our enjoyment of the simple pleasures in life. And as we saw, we often then end up not even enjoying the things we used to enjoy, because craving and attachment saying, sorry, that's not good enough anymore. I need something bigger, better and different. So as we saw, if we can reduce and eliminate craving and attachment, we'll actually enjoy simple pleasures in life much more than we do now. But then there's a second doubt. People go, okay, but I need attachment for a relationship. Without attachment, how can I have a relationship with anyone? Again, it's the exact opposite, is craving and attachment interferes in our relationships with others. And I think part of the confusion here is simply the terminology, the word. And this word attachment, as it's used in Buddhism and how it's used in psychology, I think is not the same. Because in psychology we talk about attachment theory. In particular, we talk about the necessity to, there are certain forms of attachment that we need to actively cultivate. For example, often the example given is this strong bond between mother and child. They call that attachment, I think, in psychology. So we need to cultivate that. So of course Buddhism would be in complete agreement that not only do we need to have a strong bond between mother and child, we need to have a strong bond between everyone. That's not attachment, as the word is used in Buddhism. In Buddhism, the word attachment is defined as a mental factor that sees its object as attractive, it exaggerates the object's attractiveness, and then wishes to possess and hold the object. Why? Because attachment believes that object is a source of our happiness. So again, attachment is a mental factor that sees its object as attractive, it exaggerates the object's attractiveness, and then wishes to possess and hold the object. Whereas attachment in psychology, I think, is defined slightly differently. In fact, I've got a couple of definitions here from psychology for the word attachment. One is that attachment is an enduring emotional tie to a special person, characterized by a tendency to seek and maintain closeness, especially during times of stress. Another definition of the word attachment, a feeling that binds one to a person, thing, cause, or the like. Another definition, a feeling of affection for a person. And some synonyms for the word attachment in psychology is affection, devotion, regard, loyalty, love. So this is very different to how the word attachment is used in Buddhism. So in a relationship, there are two dynamics. there is the healthy dynamic of loving kindness and the unhealthy dynamic of attachment. So attachment in a relationship is all about me. And with attachment in a relationship, attachment sees the other person as a thing, as an object to satisfy me. Not very nice. Whereas love or loving kindness in a relationship is simply the wish for them to be happy. And of course, the fine print is without expecting anything in return. What we will call unconditional love, no strings attached love. Conditional love, strings attached love, is love polluted by attachment. And that sounds like this. I will love you as long as, here comes the condition, as long as you keep saying and doing things that make me happy. Otherwise, no. That's all attachment speaking. So to distinguish between loving kindness and attachment, loving kindness is saying, I want you to be happy. Attachment is saying, I want you to make me happy. So attachment's all about me, 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 and it turns the other person into a thing, an object, to satisfy me. So what we want to do in any relationship is to distinguish these two aspects, reduce the attachment part as much as possible, and increase the loving kindness part as much as possible, and then our relationships will improve. And what we need to appreciate is that our life is pervaded by attachment, and not have this idea that by next week I'll get rid of it. That's not going to happen. It'll be a lifelong endeavor. But the more that we can reduce the attachment, the more that we can increase the loving kindness, the better our relationships will be. There's one other confusion about loving kindness. Often we hear in Buddhism that we are to love everyone equally. And then we get some strange ideas about what that means. We think that that means, okay, according to Buddhism, I have to spend the same amount of time with everyone and behave in the same way with everyone. This would be a disaster, particularly if the behavior is intimate behavior. So when we say love everyone equally, remember love or loving kindness is not a behavior, it's not an emotion, it's an aspiration, it's a wish. So to love everyone equally means to equally wish everyone to be happy. So that loving kindness to our partner, we would express that, we would spend probably a lot of time with them and express that maybe in an intimate way. That same loving kindness, we would express that to our family members in a very different way and spend probably less time with them. That same loving kindness, we would express that to our work colleagues and our neighbours in a very different way and maybe spend no time with them. So again, when we say love everyone equally, we're talking about equally wishing everyone to be happy. That we can aspire to. But then, one more thing is people go, okay, maybe there are these sort of two dynamics in a relationship, one healthy, one unhealthy. If I reduce the unhealthy one, increase the healthy one, yeah, okay, maybe then my relationships will improve. But still, I'm a creative person. I need attachment, craving and attachment to be creative. Again, the exact opposite. Craving and attachment interferes with creativity. Of course, mental afflictions like craving, attachment, jealousy, anger provide a lot of fuel for creativity. A lot of music and art is expressed describing these mental afflictions, absolutely. But here we're talking about the source of creativity. And the mental afflictions are not the source of creativity. The source of creativity is coming from deep within our own mind. And in fact, if our mind is agitated by craving, attachment, jealousy, anger, we are suffocating our creativity. So if we reduce mental afflictions such as craving, attachment, jealousy, anger, you'll find that there's a space for creativity to emerge. And now often we are creative for quite selfish motivation by, look at how wonderful an artist or musician I am, aren't I good? Whereas I think the truly great creative people are the ones who use their creative talents to inspire others for a good purpose. So if we reduce our mental afflictions, not only will we become more creative, we'll become more creative for a more meaningful reason. So if we reduce and eliminate our craving and attachment, we'll enjoy the simple pleasures in life more, our relationships will improve, and we'll become more creative for a more meaningful reason. So it's a win-win-win situation. Any questions about craving or attachment or loving kindness? Yeah.
I have two questions. One, when you say happiness and causes, do you mean the conditional arising that are the causes? That's one question. The second one, if you have the desire of loving and compassion, kindness, and you want to help others, and you have a certain amount of energy and time, you will prefer to start with those who need you more, or with your family that need you less in your perception?
Sure. Okay. The first one is happiness and its causes. We're talking about the causes of happiness, which were these three things here: ethics, concentration, wisdom. So therefore, that's what's going to bring us genuine happiness. Ethical basis, developing single point concentration, and then the Vipassana practice to penetrate nature reality. So that's what we mean by happiness and its causes. And the second one is, of course, when we're trying to help others, loving kindness or even compassion, that always has to come together with wisdom. Because if it doesn't come together with wisdom, then that helping others can be blind. We don't know what to do to help. People can take advantage of us, and we can end up with burnout, overextending ourselves. So therefore, we need to always come together with wisdom. And part of that wisdom is, of course, knowing what we can do to help, what we can't do to help, and so forth. So that it's the wisdom which will really inform us in terms of how to help, who to help, when to help, how much to help, and so forth. In terms of also needing to look after ourselves and rest and so forth. So that we need to bring in. Otherwise, we can end up in a lot of difficulty. And we see that, particularly people who have a lot of desire to help others, they usually overextend themselves and then they get burnt out. And of course, what happens there is, unfortunately, people who have a lot of this loving kindness and compassion, and this happens, and they get burnt out, or they get taken advantage of, which usually also happens, then unfortunately, often the conclusion they come to is loving kindness and compassion doesn't work, I'm going to give that up. Loving kindness and compassion always works. What's not working is a lack of wisdom. That's what's missing. So rather than giving up on loving kindness and compassion, we just need to add wisdom so we can look after ourselves. We know how to help, when to help, who to help, and so forth. So that's what we need to do. And of course, there is no book that you can go to that says, do this. Every situation is unique. We have to evaluate every situation on its own merit, and then using wisdom and compassion together, we decide on what to do. And of course, in some situations, we think we can see there's nothing I can do to help, or I have no capacity to help. And then we go, okay, I wish them well, but I can't, I'm not in a situation to be able to help. And you have to accept that. So that's wisdom as well. So we need that wisdom. Otherwise, we can get into all sorts of difficulties.
We wish for others, in the metta meditation, we wish for others to have the conditions so it can take eons, because, okay, sila they can make, but concentration and wisdom, we are lucky that we popped up on it. But
so remember, to cultivate that loving kindness for others, of course, is also helping us to overcome jealousy, anger, hatred, attachment, and all these things towards others. But also then, of course, if it's genuine loving kindness, it would mean that if we're in a position to help others, we will help them. You know, often people think that loving kindness and compassion is just this wish. And they sit down and they just say, oh, I wish everyone to be happy. I wish everyone to be free of suffering. No, I know, but I'm just adding that because often people think, oh, I'm developing loving kindness and compassion because I'm wishing everyone to be happy, free of suffering. Oh, they're suffering. Oh, well, okay, I don't have time to help. I mean, that's not really loving kindness and compassion. So then the essence of your question is?
Like sadness, because how can I?
Yeah. So again, we can't. The thing is, we can't make anyone happy. All we can do is be a positive influence on others. If we have the hope or expectation that we'll make them happy, we're going to suffer. We can't make them happy. All we can do is be a positive influence be a positive condition for them to find that happiness. That's all we can do. And if we expect more than that, we're just going to suffer. No?
Yeah, that's why it brings sometimes sadness because sometimes you can't do it.
Yeah, but sure, but again, this loving kindness has to be based in reality, you know. And if it is, we can be most effective in help, because the bottom line is we want to be most effective in helping them. If we're allowing this sort of depression and so forth to come in, how are we going to help anyone? We can't. So, okay, maybe we're of limited help, but if we allow this to arise, we're even less help because we're just caught up in depression and so forth. Then, yeah. Exactly. If he could, we'd all be in enlightenment now. He'd wave his magic wand and all of our suffering would be gone.
So it's also cause and condition because we have the condition and the opportunity, or I don't know what made us
Sure. And so what we can do is we can be a positive condition for others. Yeah. We can't be the cause, but we can be a positive condition for them.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, just very briefly and then we'll take a break. How to deal with attachment. First, we need a clear understanding of attachment. Because often we feel like not only is attachment not a problem, but it's necessary. We need it for enjoying things, for relationships and so forth. So the first thing is to have a clear understanding, which we try to develop now in terms of what really attachment is, and that it is just bringing suffering. And then I think the other thing together with that clear understanding of attachment is have a clear understanding of happiness in terms of genuine happiness. Because if our worldview is that happiness is out there, attachment will naturally follow. So I think we need then to shift that worldview in terms of, instead of hoping that pleasure is going to give us happiness, have a worldview of inner well-being. Then, when attachment arises, the first thing is mindfulness. That's why the Shamata practice is very helpful, because if we do the Shamata practice and improve our mindfulness, it means when attachment arises in our mind, we can notice it. Because what happens now often is that we only notice it when our mind is already out of control. So there's a little window of opportunity from when attachment first arises to the point where attachment has taken control of our mind. That window of opportunity may only be 1 or 2 seconds. But if we've cultivated mindfulness, we can catch that attachment before it's overwhelming our mind. We can notice the beginning of attachment, go, oh, look, there's some attachment coming up here. And then one thing we can do is simply observe it. If we observe it, we're not caught up in it. We're not feeding it. It'll just go, choop, gone. And then, on top of just observing, we can apply what's called an antidote to attachment. And to apply an antidote to attachment, we can rely on the 2 main wings of practice of wisdom and compassion. So on the wisdom wing, what we can do in terms of attachment is 2 things at least. One is impermanence, is that when attachment is arising, is observe the object or person that we're getting attached to and see that that thing is changing moment by moment. And if we can see that it's changing moment by moment, there is nothing for attachment to grab hold of. So impermanence is an antidote for attachment. At a deeper level, this Vipassana practice of emptiness is an antidote. That if craving and attachment is coming up, we can either investigate the person or object, the object of our attachment, and go, where is that person or thing? Where is the beauty in that person or thing that I'm getting attached to? We can investigate the attachment itself. Where is this attachment that's arising in my mind? Or we can investigate the me. Where is the me that is getting attached? If you do any one of those three, you'll find that the attachment will dissolve. So that's using the wisdom wing as an antidote, either through impermanence or emptiness. On the compassion wing of practice, if attachment or craving is coming up for a person, it's usually because we have a first-person perspective. What can I get out of this situation? It's all about me. So what we can do is shift our perspective and see the situation from their perspective. How is this person seeing the situation? And then I think you'll find it's much easier to cultivate loving kindness for them rather than attachment. So that's a few tips on what we can do if attachment arises. Of course, the long-term strategy is to eliminate attachment through coming to realize the nature of reality. Because all mental afflictions, including attachment, is coming from a distorted view of reality. So long-term strategy, realize emptiness, eliminate ignorance, attachment eliminated. Short-term strategy, understand that attachment is harmful, mindfulness, and then using these particularly impermanence and loving kindness as antidotes. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Any last question? Otherwise we'll take a break. Okay, let's take a 20-minute break and come back at 3:45, and then we'll go back into the mindfulness practice. And then in this last session, I want to focus at the nostrils, and then to end the session, we're going to do the Shavasana meditation.
Get up tomorrow morning.
Okay, first tea break, 20 minutes.